Ag PhD full episodes and more are now available on Acres TV, the newest ag platform connecting you to fields of information. Look for us on watchacrestv.com.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about one of the jobs that comes up, just every so often on the farm. It's starting a shelter belt.
Well, it is really important as you look at farms to have some protection from the weather. I wish our crops had a little bit of protection sometimes, but you know what? That's just kind of how it is with crops. But your house and your farm buildings, you can make some protection. That's why I like the shelter belt, because I think about wind protection as one of those things when, you know what, you get those days that the wind is blowing so hard, it's tough to do anything outside. Having that shelter belt gives you a nice little space to work in.
Well, whatever the reason you want to have a shelter belt for, maybe it's just beauty, maybe you like trees, whatever. The point here is we want you to have not just a good shelter belt, but a great shelter belt. So it starts with tree selection, and that's really going to vary depending on where you're at. So our advice to you is just talk to people in your local area about what trees and what shrubs are going to fit best for you. Typically, people will start with shrubs on the outside, and then they'll work their way to bigger trees on the inside. But again, you're going to have to adjust this depending on your needs and your area.
Now, it's one thing about having a pretty tree out in front of your house you want to look at, and you can do whatever you would like to have for that tree. But in your shelter belt, planting some trees that are native to your area is generally a pretty good idea. You know you're going to have them out there for a long time, and you're going to have some tough winters, you're going to have some heat in the summer, whatever those conditions would be for where you're at. So I would strongly suggest planting some native trees in that shelter belt, and as you're putting that shelter belt up, make sure you plan for those trees getting bigger. One of the problems that we've seen when people plant trees too close together, they don't think, well, 20 years from now they're going to be big. You have to plan for, hey, what are they going to be, and leave them plenty of room to stretch their branches out.
And then maybe you want to plan for a few of those trees dying. So some trees just don't have great survivability. So personally, I'd rather plant them a little bit thicker in some cases, but maybe leave the rows a little bit wider. But that's totally up to you and the tree experts in your area. The big thing I guess I wanted to talk about today, and we can get to weed control and that kind of thing, but it really comes back to fertility. If you fertilize your trees correctly, then you're going to have a lot better shelter belt over the long term. Potassium is the #1 thing. We talk about it all the time here on the show with stalk quality for our crops. Well, think about the stalk on the tree. That's really the key here. We've got to have not just a good stalk, but a great stalk. So what you want to do is get your potassium levels really high, like 7 or 8% base saturation K. If you have a heavy soil, that probably means you want hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of potassium out there. Get it out there before you seed the trees and get it down in the ground. Potassium doesn't do you a whole lot of good laying in the soil surface. It doesn't move very well in soils, especially heavy soils. So put it down in the ground and really jack your potassium levels. You want to balance the rest of your soils too. So just follow all our regular tips on soil fertility, but potassium's the one that's got to be much more elevated compared to crops.
And as Brian mentioned with weed control, we just want to keep all the competition away from those trees as long as we can. If you're planting really small trees, we'd suggest keeping it black in between the rows, keeping all the grass and other competitors away. If you're planting little bigger trees, maybe you don't have to have quite as big a space around them. They can compete a little bit better. But just keeping that clean, at least for the first few years, is going to be important.
Right, grass is an enormous competitor to trees. That's why we want to keep that out of there. And then my last thing is water. You want to be watering these trees all the time when they are first getting going. Like for Darren and me, when we were growing up, when we started a shelter belt, we had a pickup, we had a trailer with a water tank there, and one of us would drive, probably me, and Darren would walk along and water the trees. And that's how we did it when we were growing up. But you've got to water those trees. You got to give them the best chance to get started early on.
Well, shelter belts are really important around farm places. I know for us growing up, they protected us from the winter, they protected us from the wind, and they gave us some shade when it got a little warmer in the summer too. So take care of your shelter belt on your farm. One other thing you'll need to take care of is our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?